So I've been going back through The Walking Dead and revisiting this series. If you saw my last video, I had talked about season 1 to 3 and my new thoughts and, what I thought before and if my opinion changed. And the wife and I have finished season 4 and 5, and revisiting those was pretty nice. I kind of feel the same way about season 1 to 3, the same I do with season 4 and 5. There was a lot of things that the majority of Walking Dead fans kind of came to a consensus on, and that is at least why they extended out the governor storyline. I don't understand. I mean, with the behind the scenes of the show, that could have been a big reason why, of being like, oh, don't end the governor storyline just yet. But this made season 4 really suffer from that, because at least the beginning of season 4, it really was almost moving on from that. And then we had to backtrack and go back to the governor storyline almost through, the first half of season 4. And after, the beginning of season 4 has a lot to do with, they bring a lot of people from the Woodbury town and take them in. And a sickness basically starts to develop through the prison. And with that going on, a lot of it had to do with they had pigs. They were starting to farm at the prison and everything. But the problem was the pigs that were spreading this disease and getting everyone sick and everyone dying. So a lot of the beginning of season 4 had to do with that, and them trying to overcome, this sickness, and a lot of people dying. Like Glenn got sick. Carol ended up killing 2 of the people at the prison from the sickness. They ended up being burned by Carol. And that was a big mystery. At least the first half of season 4, you weren't sure who did that. And it ended up being revealed that Carol was the one who did that. So after they got through this big thing, they're like, oh, let's bring the governor back. And, because he couldn't be found, he just disappeared at the end of season 3. And with season 3, they really needed to wrap up the governor storyline. I think it was just, there was 2 episodes completely dedicated to the governor. And I do think that the first episode, where it was just focused on the governor, was an interesting concept, of where it was just following him, what happened to him. He basically burned down the whole town of Woodbury and just really lost, everything he was building up, because he just lost his mind. And then he meets up with a new group, and this was actually the introduction of the character Tara, who I completely forgot. That was through the governor meeting her sister, and them staying in just this tiny little house or apartment area, and then them taking in the governor, and they didn't realize the evil that he was at the time. So I like that episode, even though it was a very slow episode. I really enjoyed that. But once it went to the second episode of the governor, then it started to show his true colors again. And he ended up meeting up with Martinez, who was with him in Woodbury and his right-hand man. And governor kills Martinez, and him being a total psychopath, and still no one sees it. And then brings us to the first half of season 4, the episode Too Far Gone, which I will say probably is one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. It is so good and so tragic, but it sticks with you because of there is a major character death whose death, greatly affected everyone who loved the show. And it still stings, when you watch it, because, Herschel, he got killed in such a gruesome way. And, Herschel was just an amazing character, and, really came a long way from him living on his farm, thinking that the walkers were just sick people that needed to be cured, to him knowing that this is the world that we live in. And it's killing walkers is just a thing. If you want to survive, this is what has to be done. And even despite that, him getting bit in the leg at the beginning of season 3 and them hacking off his leg And he was still a total badass and, you know, a very, very wise character. And so it kind of sucked that once Herschel ended up being killed by the governor, that, you know, there's not a whole lot of, you know, the old mentor type characters in this show, not at least to the point where I watched up to. But I would say Morgan is a close second, but I know Morgan's character is changing and is continuing to change. I don't know as far as past where I watched in Walking Dead, and I know he went to Fear the Walking Dead, you know, not long after, I guess, whenever he appeared, but that's another story. But yeah, getting back to at least the point where we were in season 4, like that last episode, Too Far Gone, that should have been the last episode of season 3 to me, because the season finale of season 3, Welcome to the Tombs, like, while it's not a bad episode, it was just not what it should have been. The end of season 3, it just ends in such a lackluster way. You were building up this big battle at the prison, and Too Far Gone, if that was the last episode of season 3, that would have been a fantastic way to end season 3, but it didn't end that way. And so unfortunately it extended out the governor storyline all the way through, you know, the middle part of season 4. But at least we got Too Far Gone, and that's a fantastic episode. And I would say the first half of season 4 was definitely, I would say, a lot better than the second half of season 4. I liked the sickness that was breaking out at the prison and a lot of people getting sick. It was another type of threat that wasn't just, there's this other group of people, you know, that are being a threat. It was just, you know, it is, you know, minus the virus of causing, you know, the end of the world and the apocalypse, you have another sickness that basically is like a flu-like symptoms, almost like getting bit by a walker, and like have fever, like burning you out and causing you to pass away. Like it was just another form of the plague. And, you know, everyone at the prison having to figure this out and try to get through it. And I really like that aspect. And after the big battle at the prison with the governor and his new team, and, you know, them going through, Herschel getting killed, a bunch of prisoners getting killed, the governor getting killed, you know, everyone is separated at this point. So a lot of the second half of season 4, it was a lot of slower type episodes. I did like the first episode right after the prison battle where everyone is separated, and this one, I think it was called After. And it just focuses on Carl and Rick were, you know, Rick was just at death's door because the governor just beat the crap out of him. And, you know, he's just like limping down the street, and Carl is just so mad at him from, like, he let Rick really lose who he was. Because I noticed, at least in this series, Rick is always just one extreme to the other, because he went from season 3, Rick was just like pure brutality because of the loss of Lori and, you know, him losing people, and, you know, he wasn't taking any chances. And then the beginning of season 4, he like really tried to clean up his act and be more of a peaceful type person, and became Farmer Rick. And like, he really lost his edge because of that. And, you know, when he was in battle with the governor, if it wasn't for Michonne stepping in and stabbing the governor right through the chest, like, Rick was dead. Like, he was being choked to death. Like, he practically was beaten to death by the governor. And a lot of this episode of After is just Carl and him just trying to find a place just to settle for now, and Carl just being pissed at his dad. And because Rick was all messed up, like, Rick ended up being asleep for practically like 2 days, and Carl even thought at a certain point that like Rick was dead. And, you know, because the way he was breathing, like, I think he had almost like broken ribs or something. He was like wheezing whenever he was breathing. And so even Carl in the middle of the night thought he was like turning into a walker. But I like that as far as like the slow episodes. There were just too many slow episodes of just the different characters separated with different storylines. The one with Carl and Rick I thought was good because it was just, you had this big battle and it's like you really needed to come down from that episode. And this was a good example of that. But then you had like 2 or 3 more really slow episodes with, there was one with Daryl and Beth and like them kind of bonding a little bit. And it's not bad, but it's just like, we didn't need this, and we could have been just, moving the story along and not dragging our feet about it. And I would say a good example of one of the slow episodes was towards the end of the season, and that is the episode The Grove. And this is how you do a slow episode. It was involving Carol, Tyrese, and the 2 little girls. I'm blanking on the 2 girls' names, but if you've seen this episode, it immediately pops into your head what happens, and this is a good example of an engaging episode that isn't action-packed. It's just like character involved, but the thing that happens is shocking, where you had one of the girls, the little girls, that's like clearly she doesn't know, she can't grasp this concept that the walkers are dead. Their process in their brain is eat and eat and eat and sleep and eat, and that's it. And they don't have any emotions, nothing. And so she thinks of this concept that killing the other little girl, she'll come back and it'll be okay. And so she ends up, I think her name is Lizzie or something like that, and she kills the other little girl who had more of the grasp on, this is the world, we have to avoid walkers and such. And so when Tyrese and Carol were just away for a little bit, they found this house that they were able to settle at for a little bit of time, and they came back to where the girls were, and Lizzie killed the other little girl. It was just like, oh my God. And it's like, this was a shocking moment. It was like, even though like you knew Lizzie wasn't all right in the head, this was like, you didn't think an episode like this that was going to happen. So it was like, all of a sudden, this slower type episode was super engaging, and you're like, what are they gonna kill the little girl? Like, what happens? And that dawned the famous phrase of Carol's, look at the flowers, Lizzie. And so The Grove was one of those examples of episodes that was like slow but super engaging. And so yeah, just all the slow episodes to the end of season 4 were just like, you could kind of give or take. You didn't need that many. And, this was also leading up to Terminus. And, we did get the introduction of Abraham, Rosita, Eugene, and their mission to go to DC to try to save the world and come up with a cure for this. So, there was that. In all those slow episodes, I did like getting introduced to Abraham and his little slogans of bitch nuts and son of a dick and mother dick, and Abraham's hilarious. But the end of season 4 does end on a good note. It ends on a complete cliffhanger, and I know The Walking Dead, like fans of the graphic novels, said that, they really botched the end of season 4, because Rick and the group, they go to Terminus, they find out that these people are cannibals, they get chased into this little storage area, and, they get locked in there, and then Rick says they're screwing with the wrong people, and fans, I remember reading online, people were like, the fans were so mad because Rick didn't drop the F-bomb. Instead of, they're effing with the wrong people, he says they're screwing with the wrong people. And, Andrew Lincoln did the best he could with that line, but it sounded way more corny. And so, but season 4 does end on a good note with them being at Terminus. And I'm glad, rather than the whole, slow burn of being like, not everything seems right here. It's just immediately Rick is just like, I know what the F is going on here. Like, and we're not taking any chances. We know you guys are effed up, and we're not buying it. And I like that aspect of just like, trying to trust people and everything. It was just Rick and the group just followed their gut and was like, these guys, this isn't right. And so leading into season 5 starts with a bang. It's funny. It's like they get to Terminus right at the end of season 5, like the first episode, they freaking destroy Terminus practically, and they escape with their lives. And the first episode, No Sanctuary, was a great episode. Great way to start season 5. And, first couple episodes of season 5 were really good. They end up meeting the priest Gabriel, and, third episode into season 5, it's like, Gareth from Terminus. It's like they destroy Terminus. Gareth survives. He has a couple other people with him, and they end up finding Rick and his group settling at Gabriel's church. And so they're preparing themselves for when they attack. The character of Bob ends up getting captured by Gareth, and they end up eating his leg. And Bob is hiding from the group the fact he got bit by a walker in the second episode. And so as Gareth and his group are eating his leg, Bob just like starts laughing hysterically, and he's like, I've been bit, you idiots. He's like, tainted meat. And I love that moment. Bob was just like, even though he lost his leg, he's just like, you guys are stupid. You're eating like infected meat practically. And third episode, Four Walls and a Roof, is a great episode because Rick and his group just unleash brutality upon Gareth and the rest of the group that survived with him. And they don't take any chances. Like when Rick said, in the first episode of season 5 to Gareth, he's like, where he was hiding all these weapons out in the woods, he's like, there's a machete with a red handle on it, and I'm gonna use that to kill you. And he lived up to his promise. He straight up hacked Gareth to death with that machete. So, those first 3 episodes were amazing. After that, it's a shame because I remember really liking season 5 in retrospect, but then I completely forgot that this aspect of the season happened, and that is when Beth got captured by this group and woke up in this hospital in the city. And this whole storyline of just the police officer Dawn and her group in this hospital of, trying to save people and everything, I did not like this aspect of this, portion of the season because, I don't know, just her logic just doesn't make any sense. It's like, so you want to just continue to capture people to then help them because eventually the world is going to go back to normal, and then you guys will be the ones that are still established as the normal world. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the whole Beth death, it is such a punch to the nuts, like Beth's death. It's like, I can understand doing that, like her getting accidentally shot in the face when she stabs Dawn with like the tiniest little pair of scissors. They're like practically tweezers. Like, I understand, like, it would have been something if it was like a member of the group that wasn't as big as Beth if it wasn't as big of a character as Beth, I would have understood doing a death like that, but that was such a punch to the nuts with her stabbing the police officer Dawn, and then she's just like, oh, I'm so trigger happy. And then like just shoots her straight through the head. I don't know. That was just such a middle finger to the character of Beth. And, she meets the character of Noah in this hospital, and Noah ends up escaping while Beth gets recaptured. And for all of her good deeds on rescuing Noah, Noah ends up biting the dust in season 5, and his death was just so brutal. It was probably one of the most brutal deaths of the whole series. minus the one that caused everyone to stop watching. This was probably second to that. I mean, it was pretty damn brutal, and character of Noah did not deserve that. So, yeah, I mean, season 5 had some really great episodes, but I would say episode 1 to 3 really good. Episode 4 to 8, I did not really care for at all. And season 5 was, when Eugene was being like, I'm a scientist and I'm gonna go to DC, figure out how to cure this thing, and we're gonna fix the world. Season 5 is where Abraham finds out that he was lying the whole time. He was basically being a pathological liar, and Eugene's defense was just like, I'm smarter than most people, but I'm no scientist, and I had to use some sort of skill of, I can pretend that, I can carry a lie for a pretty long time. And so he's like, I used, the skills that I do have. And Abraham got so pissed at him, he practically like punched him. I don't know, like Abraham punched him a couple times, and Eugene passed out on the ground. And it's like, damn, did he kill Eugene? Like, I mean, Abraham was really pissed. But yeah, I would say, like, 4 episodes of the first half of season 5 weren't great. The whole Beth storyline in that hospital, I did not care for at all. Second half of season 5, overall, I definitely enjoyed it. So the second half is just like, the group is just, they left the hospital with the loss of Beth, and they ended up, I'm thinking of, like, right after they lost Beth, like, they're out on the road again, and then I completely forgot that Tyrese bites the dust, like, the episode after Beth bites the dust. And, Tyrese dies in just a really sad way. Like, he ends up getting bit, from a walker. He didn't realize that was behind him. He basically starts to hallucinate seeing all these people of just him just trying to do good in, this post-apocalyptic world. And while he does the best he can to do the right thing and do good, it's just, all the good people, end up dying, because it's like, they're not thinking of themselves, they're thinking about saving other people, and that act in itself is getting them killed. And that just Tyrese just seeing all these things, unfold, and like the guy that he was trying to come to terms with, where he was like, I'm not going to kill this other guy, and then Sasha had to be the one to end up killing him. That, Tyrese he was just a big teddy bear. Like, he was a big dude, and he could definitely kill some walkers for sure, but like, he was a good person. And that was definitely an underrated death. I think that it didn't affect people that much, but it's definitely an underrated death. That was definitely a sad one. And because I like the character of Tyrese, even through all his flaws and such, like, he was a very forgiving person. And second half of season 5, it's just, there was a couple episodes where the group's on the road, and they are at their wits' end. They're just done. Like, they don't know what to do anymore. Like, every place they went to was just another pipe dream. There was no sanctuary with Terminus. And so they end up, settling into just this little barn just for the night during like this terrible storm. And Rick just basically gives the famous speech of saying, "We are the Walking Dead." And the episode after that, they end up finding the character of Aaron, and the introduction of Aaron of being this recruiter for this gated community called Alexandria. And so towards the end of season 5, you had, them being taken into Alexandria, and just them trying to adjust from going to being on the road all the time, sleeping with both eyes open practically, to a gated community that is well established. And just, if there's any source of remote of any threat, like human being wise, they're like in PTSD mode, especially Rick. You know, Rick kind of loses his mind towards the character of Pete, who, you know, he abuses his wife, he hits her and he hits his kids. And so Rick really wants to jump into action and do something about it. He's like, he's a threat. He's hurting his wife, he's hurting his kids, like he's got to go. And, you know, the gripes with the rest of the group is like, we can't just kill this person. And Rick's just like, you don't get it. It's like, you've been in this community, you've been safe from walkers this whole time. You really don't know what it's like out there, and this is what it is. And by the end of the season, because of the terms with that and Rick kind of losing his mind, he had, you know, a gun with him that he was hiding the whole time, because this gated community is like, they take all the guns, they put it in this armory and like this, you know, this storage area, so no one can just pull out a gun and shoot someone. And, you know, Rick was able to hide a gun from them. And so him and Pete, the abusive husband, get in this big brawl, and he starts to lose it. So at the end of one episode, he's just waving this gun around. He's like, you know, you get what Rick is trying to do, but at the same time, Rick is also overstepping his boundaries. You're like I said earlier, it's like Rick always goes from one extreme to the other. He goes 0 to 100 in like 2 seconds. And so doing Rick a favor, Michonne ends up knocking him out. And so the last episode of season 5 is just all the people in Alexandria want to hold a meeting to, you know, whether Rick is going to stay in Alexandria, or Deanna, the leader of Alexandria, if she's going to simply exile him and just kick him out and just say, we're sending you on your way, you know, good luck, but you are not welcome here. And so this was a good season finale. And you had several different side stories where, you know, Glenn had this trouble with the character of Nicholas, where he caused Noah to get killed in that rotating doorway. Nicholas is a terrible character, and Glenn should have just freaking beat him to death when that happened. But Glenn is such a good person and has such a good self-control that he didn't end up killing Nicholas. But I feel like if I was there, it would have been so hard for me to hold back on that. But yeah, the end of season 5 was really well done. And just, you didn't think that just this simple meeting would have been so, you know, suspenseful, but it was. And like, Rick wasn't at the meeting, and, you know, everyone from Rick's group practically was defending Rick. It's just like, you can't have us here and not have Rick here, because Rick got us here. If it wasn't for Rick, none of us would have been alive. And Rick ends up finding like a walker that was, you know, had snuck in, like someone had forgotten to close the gate. Actually, I think a character just purposely didn't shut the gate correctly, so it let a couple walkers in, and Rick ended up having to kill a bunch of them. So when Rick finally gets to the meeting, he throws a walker down on the ground in front of everyone, and Rick's just like covered in blood, and he's just like, how many of you people do I have to kill for you to survive, or whatever? And so eventually, the end of the episode, after everyone's a little calmer, Pete ends up showing up. He took Michonne's sword that she had hanging on the wall in the house they were staying at. And so he was basically like, she shouldn't be, it's like, she shouldn't be here. Or he's like, he shouldn't be here. So he starts flipping out. And then Reg, Deanna's husband, ends up trying to calm him down, and then he kicks Reg and then slices his throat open, so Reg dies. And then finally Deanna is just, she's at the end of her rope. It's like, you killed my husband, Rick, kill him, please. So Rick shoots Pete in the head, and then right at the end, who shows up with Daryl and Aaron? It's Morgan. And then Morgan and Rick basically swapped roles from that episode in season 3, Clear, where Morgan was just, he was just gone, and then Rick was trying to bring him back and being like, you saved my life, you know, you did all this for me, and you can come back from this. And now Rick is just... My wife is over there. So Morgan is basically, basically switches roles with Rick, and then that leads us right into season 6, which I will get to once we finish it. But that's going to wrap it up here for me. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts. I am quite the rambler when it comes to this stuff, and I seem to be all over the place. But regardless, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in a future video. Bye.